Regardless of what anyone thinks of this movie, it is long overdue for Jake Gyllenhaal to win an Oscar. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be giving you my review of The Guilty, the latest Netflix film starring Jake Gyllenhaal, directed by Antoine Fuqua. A demoted police officer assigned to a call dispatch desk is conflicted when he receives an emergency phone call from a kidnapped woman. So before I give you guys my thoughts on the movie, definitely hit that like button, comment your thoughts on the movie down below, and make sure to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on any future reviews. So I remember seeing the trailer for this movie on Twitter a few weeks ago, and I was like, Jake Gyllenhaal doing a movie about a 911 dispatch caller that looks like a thriller probably is going to draw in a lot of viewers, and I think this movie is going to do very well on Netflix because Jake Gyllenhaal is a big star name, but the premise alone is extremely creative, and for a thriller, it works. It really does. Antoine Fuqua, I feel like, is one of the more underrated directors in Hollywood. He did Training Day, which I think is his by far best movie, but he's also done like The Magnificent Seven, The Equalizer, The Shooter. I really like Shooter, grew up on that one. And this movie is further proof that Jake Gyllenhaal is one of the best actors working today, without a doubt. The man needs to get an Oscar at some point. I feel like he'll never win one, and he'll be like the one outlier that was like, hey, I never won an Oscar, but I am one of the GOATs. He obviously brings it here as his character is very damaged. We see that early on in the movie. He's got an inhaler, so he has issues that he's dealing with from a physical health perspective, but he's going through the mental game as well, and we see his conflict throughout the movie as he takes these 911 calls, and he's under a lot of high stress with certain aspects of his life. I won't reveal too much about the movie because I don't want to spoil it. Jake Gyllenhaal is the perfect guy to play someone in such a high stress situation and make the audience buy into his character. And the biggest strong point of this movie is the fact that the audience feels like they are a 911 dispatch caller, and it feels like we're right there experiencing this movie through the lens of Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Joe, because we don't see any of the interactions that he has. The entire movie is basically just Jake Gyllenhaal on a little headset phone, and every time he's talking, it'll zoom into different features of his face, but we're just listening and basically directing the movie ourselves. Now, this is really cool and something that you don't see in movies a lot, because we're all going to be painting different pictures of the events in our head, so if you ask someone else about the movie, you can talk about what happened, but you both pictured it differently in your head, because no one can really picture something the same way, and that's something that I was thinking about while watching this movie. I'm like, that's actually a really cool choice, and I don't think that happens a lot in movies. Now, while this is really refreshing, at least for the first half of the movie, it can become a little bit dull and stale later on, especially towards the latter half of the movie, because insane things are happening over the phone that are really big deals, and we're still having to kind of direct the movie in our head, so it can get frustrating, in my opinion, when you want to see what's going on, and you would love to be able to see Jake Gyllenhaal interact with these people instead of just hear the conversations, because that might actually add to the emotional stakes and make you buy into the events more. But just having to listen to it and capture the audio and then paint the picture in our head can get a little tiring at times as an audience member towards the end of the movie. From a pacing perspective, though, the movie's only an hour and a half, and it really does fly by. I don't think the movie could have really been any longer, honestly. I think that short runtime really fits what we're going for here. It's a tight, tension-filled narrative, and it works. It's very effective in that sense. There's also some fairly clever reveals throughout this movie that kept me on my toes. Like, every few moments, I'd be like, where are we going next here? And I won't reveal anything too much because I want you guys to experience this movie without any spoilers, but I was definitely caught off guard at times with certain things that happen. I always love when a thriller can kind of keep me on my toes and not feel too predictable. Now, I do think the ending of this movie is slightly abrupt, and it almost caught me off guard, and not in a good way. I don't think the movie needed to be longer than an hour and a half, but I feel like the ending could have given a little more finality. I do like what happened with the characters by the end of the movie. I think that it's fitting for the actual story that we're presented with, but I just felt like it happened so quickly. It sort of felt rushed at the very end there, so maybe they could have taken their time showing different characters that we hear throughout the movie and actually getting to see some finality with them as opposed to just hearing it. But maybe that's also the point, because again, the whole movie, we're basically in Jake Gyllenhaal's shoes as this 911 call operator, so you know, as a 911 call operator, you're not always going to go and get to see all these different people that you're talking to. So it kind of is like a pro and con simultaneously. And for me, there's a certain key relationship in this movie that really should have had at least one flashback scene or a few other moments to really get the audience to buy into that relationship. Again, I won't reveal what it is. If they had built that up earlier in the movie with one scene of Gyllenhaal interacting with this character, by the end of the movie, it would have hit a lot harder and had much more of an emotional impact. But at the end of the day, this is a really solid thriller that I recommend checking out. It's only an hour and a half, and if you like Jake Gyllenhaal, you're probably going to be invested in this because, again, the man can do no wrong in my eyes. He's just always giving such fantastic performances, and you can add another one to his resume here. I think Antoine Fuqua is a very underrated, underappreciated director in Hollywood. I think The Guilty has a few issues when it comes to wrapping up things in a satisfying manner, and I would have liked to not have to direct the movie as much myself. I think that if there was a little more direction and scenes between Jake Gyllenhaal and other characters, that could have added to the emotional weight of the movie, especially for those big moments that are supposed to pull on our heartstrings and really hit home in the end. But overall, this was a really clever take on the thriller narrative, and if you've just seen that trailer, it's a really interesting concept that locked me in early on and kept my attention for the most part. I'm going to give The Guilty a 3.5 out of 5, a really entertaining movie that goes by very quick, so if you have to pick something to watch this weekend, you're like, oh, I don't have that much time, this is a really easy watch that I do recommend checking out, especially if you're a Jake Gyllenhaal fan. But that's going to do it for my review of The Guilty, the latest Netflix film starring Jake Gyllenhaal. Definitely hit that like button, comment your thoughts on the movie down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Think it was average? Do you think that it's one of the Gyllenhaal's better performances? Let's talk about that in the comment section. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future reviews, all that good stuff. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.